Welcome to Two Minds Infinite Stories podcast. Today we are going on a deep dive into the surprising history of something we all know, Black Friday.
Yeah.
You know, the day after Thanksgiving, that day famous for crazy deals and maybe just a little shopping mayhem.
Let's be honest, it's not always a little. Some of those Black Friday stories are legendary.
Right, totally. But today, we're going beyond just those crazy shopping stories.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack the history of the term Black Friday itself. You might have heard that it's about retailers going from in the red to in the black because of all those sales.
Yeah, that's the popular story. But when we dug into the research for this deep dive, we found out that's actually a myth. The real history goes way back, even before people were fighting over discounted TVs.
Okay, so spill the tea. Where did this term really come from?
It's wild. But the term Black Friday pops up way back in the 1860s, tied to a major event on Wall Street, September 24th, 1869. To be exact.
Wall Street, so not even about shopping at all.
Not even close. This was a financial Black Friday. The day a gold market crash sent shockwaves through the U.S. economy. People lost fortunes, and the effects were felt for years.
So Black Friday was already connected to financial disaster long before anyone was camping out for deals.
Exactly. The term already carried that sense of doom and gloom, and it's interesting to see how that meaning evolved over time.
Okay. So we've got financial ruin in the 1860s, but I know we eventually do get to shopping. Where does that connection come in?
Fast forward to the 1950s and 60s, and we find Black Friday popping up again, this time in Philadelphia. But it wasn't retailers who coined the term. It was the police.
Now, this is where I got really curious reading through the research. The Philadelphia police, they were talking about sales, were they? What was going on there?
They were dealing with the massive crowds and chaos that descended on the city the day after Thanksgiving. Imagine huge traffic jams, sidewalks packed with shoppers and tourists, basically complete pandemonium.
Yeah. The research painted a pretty vivid picture of that. The police absolutely dreaded Black Friday. They had to work extra long shift just to manage the chaos.
It wasn't just the crowds either. Apparently, shoplifters took advantage of the situation too, knowing that stores were overwhelmed and understaffed.
So Black Friday for the Philly police was all about managing a city. Kind of a little wild. But did retailers like that name?
Actually, no. In the 1960s, they tried to ditch the negative association by rebranding the day as Big Friday. Pretty ironic, right?
Yeah. They tried to make it sound more positive, more celebratory, but it didn't really stick.
What's fascinating is that they ultimately failed to rebrand it then, yet just a few decades later, retailers managed to completely spin Black Friday into a positive shopping event.
It's like a marketing masterclass. They took a term associated with chaos and financial disaster and made it the biggest shopping day of the year.
How did that even happen?
Well, it wasn't an overnight success story. It took time, and it really hinges on that in the red to in the black narrative. Right. The myth we talked about earlier. When did that idea become popular?
It seems the red to black story gained traction in the late 1980s. Retailers really started pushing that narrative, emphasizing the positive side of Black Friday, the huge sales and profits.
And it worked. It's amazing how many people today have no idea about the term's true origin. They just see it as a chance to snag some great deals.
It speaks to how powerful framing and marketing can be. By associating Black Friday with positive emotions like saving money and getting a good deal, they were able to completely reshape its public image. It really makes you think, doesn't it? They took this day rooted in fear and financial panic and turned it into a shopping extravaganza.
Yeah. I mean, we've all gotten caught up in the Black Friday hype at some point, but knowing the history definitely adds a different dimension to it.
Yeah, it also makes you wonder about the psychology behind it all. Why are we so drawn to these massive shopping events, even if they're rooted in something negative?
I think part of it is that fear of missing out, right? Like, if you don't get that amazing deal, you've somehow lost out.
Right. That's a good point. Retailers definitely play on that. But it's also about more than just getting a bargain. It's become a social experience, a tradition for some people.
Oh, absolutely. People plan their whole Thanksgiving weekend around Black Friday shopping. They camp out in front of stores, make it a family event.
And that's another interesting aspect of Black Friday's evolution. It's no longer consigned to a single day. It's spread out into this whole shopping weekend.
Right. We can't forget about Small Business Saturday and Cyber Monday. They'd become major players in the post-Thanksgiving shopping scene.
Yeah. Speaking of changing perceptions, those additions are really interesting. Small Business Saturday, for example, encourages people to support local shops and businesses, offering a completely different experience than the big box store frenzy.
Yeah. It's like a conscious effort to balance out the consumerism of Black Friday, right?
Mm.
And then you've got Cyber Monday, which takes the whole thing online.
Exactly. Cyber Monday lets people avoid the crowds altogether, offering a more convenient way to grab those deals.
It's fascinating how Black Friday, this day that was once all about local chaos in Philadelphia, has become this global, multi-platform shopping event.
It really reflects how much our shopping habits and priorities have changed over the years, and it shows that even something as commercial as Black Friday can continue to evolve and adapt.
Yeah, it's almost like it has a life of its own now. But no matter how much it changes, that underlying history is still there, lurking beneath the surface.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. It reminds us that even the most familiar traditions and terms often have hidden depths and unexpected origins.
Totally. So as we head into another Black Friday season, with all the deals and the hype, it's worth remembering that complex history, that journey from financial panic to retail bonanza.
And maybe as you're browsing those deals online or braving the crowds at the mall, take a moment to consider how you view Black Friday now. Knowing its true origins, does it change your perspective at all?
It definitely makes you think twice before hitting that add to cart button. But in all seriousness, I think knowing the history makes the whole thing a lot more interesting. It really is a reminder that there's always more to the story that meets the eye, even something as seemingly simple as a shopping day.
Right, exactly. So next time you see those Black Friday ads, you might have a whole new perspective on what's really going on.
Well, folks, that wraps up our deep dive into the surprising history of Black Friday.
We've gone from Wall Street crashes to Philly street chaos to the shopping phenomenon we know today. It's been quite a journey.
Hopefully you learned a thing or two.
And if you're planning on hitting the stores or browsing those online deals this Black Friday, remember there's a whole lot of history baked into that add to cart button.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive on Two Minds Infinite Stories podcast. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X, formerly known as Twitter, for more deep dives into topics that matter.
And we're super excited to announce that Two Minds Infinite Stories will be available on Spotify very soon. So stay tuned for that.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those stories coming.